But all of us were reared in the church, Dr. Karen, and all of us were told about all these prohibitions. How far have we strayed? You know, we've really strayed far from our roots, haven't we?
Well, I'm not sure that we are actually taking into account how important the family is as a counterbalance for the church. So whether it's church or mosque or temple, the family is reinforcing of what the religious group says is going to be quite important. True. So if within the family you don't have that reinforcement, that's going to have one effect. And if within the family the reinforcement is so strong as to be prohibitive.
True, it can repel people.
You see, one of the interesting things, Ian, is that when young people discover for themselves, when they test drive this machine, and they discover for themselves that the feelings that they feel are pleasurable feelings, and mommy and daddy never told you about pleasurable feelings. They told you that sex was bad, sex was evil, sex was wrong, sex was... Then mommy and daddy obviously have never had sex. So we need to stop this nonsense about telling our kids that we never had sex, don't understand it, and therefore are expert at telling you how to avoid it. If you've never had sex, what makes you an expert on telling me what to do to safeguard my body? We have to begin there. We have to begin by being honest about sex.
So what grown rules we should set for our teenagers?
Well, I don't think we start at teenage. I think we start from the very first time a child asks any question that has anything to do with sex. First of all, answer the question asked. The child is not asking you to demystify sex for them. They're asking one straight-up question. Answer that question. And as you go along, answer the questions asked. And if you don't know the answers, tell the child you'll come back to them. I remember the first time my daughter asked me, my eldest daughter asked me, what is oral sex?
Yes.
I was in the supermarket. I remember the exact package I was looking at. Kraft macaroni and cheese. But because she had no notion. Yes.
You told her right there?
Right there. Because she had no notion about prohibited questions.
Yes, true.
We're in the supermarket shopping, and someone had mentioned it she just entered high school. Someone mentioned it at school, and she had no idea what this thing was. And she said, Mommy, what is oral sex? And we talked about it.
Talked about it right there.
And I simply answered the question asked. End of.
But what guidelines did you give to your young children in terms of sexual activity? Did you say, don't have sex before marriage?
No, I certainly didn't.
You didn't?
I certainly didn't.
And you don't think parents should go that route?
No. It's entirely up to the particular parent.
Yeah.
I
you did not say that.
felt it was better to give them information about how their bodies work
and
what sex is about.
Let them
and I'm a
decide
sex therapist, and I'm a psychologist, and I've studied sex and gender for a long time. They've seen books around the house with titles that start with sex.
Yes.
When I come in and I leave my books on the table, I don't hide them.
Okay.
So my children have been exposed to pictures of human bodies for a very long time.
Yes.
And I remember my son commenting on one of the books I brought in on sexuality. And he says, oh my goodness, you're outrageous. What is this? And he was leafing through the book, and a woman was examining herself. And he says, look at this picture. I said, yes, and if you look a little bit further, you'll find a picture of a man examining himself. I suggest you go and do that. End of conversation. So we've always been very open about sexuality.
Should we just give our children information and rely on them to use their judgment?
I don't think we can all do that. I don't think we can all do that. I think you have to have a context. I assume that my children are intelligent. I assume that they're thinking people, and I maintain open communication. I don't accept disrespectful communication, but I do accept open communication. So you're free to ask me anything you wish, but I'm also free not to answer, particularly if it's a personal question. If it's about facts and information, then I'm duty-bound to tell you. That's my own view. Because I don't want you to get it on the street where you're going to get information that isn't accurate. So it's much better for you to ask me what oral sex is than for you to ask someone on the street who doesn't have a clue.
Yeah. You don't accept the view, common on the streets among some people, that there are all these deleterious effects if one doesn't have sex. Can affect
oil build up in your back.
Build up your back. Oh, you know, see,
I know all of it.
Bust in your back and all that kind of thing. And
there are some deleterious effects.
Girls with headaches.
There are some deleterious effects.
Not having sex?
Yes. Well, let me put it a different way. There are some deleterious effects of not going through the sex cycle.
True. Tell us.
As opposed to having intercourse.
All right.
I'm not talking about intercourse here. As you get older as a woman, you can experience vaginal atrophy, which means if you don't use it, you lose it. The lining of the vagina.
Of women.
Yes, the lining of the vagina begins to thin as the hormone levels go down. And one of the things that's very healthy for the vagina is that it get exercise. It needn't be intercourse. It needn't be with a partner.
Masturbation.
You could self-pleasure. You could use sex aid. You could do any of these things. It also aids in sleep. In studies that have been done with older women who have no partners, sleep studies that they've done, an orgasm helps you with sleep. So if you can bring yourself to orgasm, if you can self-pleasure, it helps. For the man, ejaculation is useful. It has its place. Some men...
So while it's not true that, the oil in your back...
It's a figurative speech, but it really does have some connection. It has some connection. Some men...
We have natural...
ejaculations, nocturnal ejaculations. I was going to say, some men experience nocturnal ejaculations and it helps.
So nature takes care of that.
Often what is happening is men talk about waking up with an erection. That's not true. An erection wakes you up. Because during the night you're having several semi-hard erections until you get a full erection, which says that the body is ready again for the day's activities and ready for sex. And some men find that by frotterism, by rubbing against the sheets, etc., they may elicit an ejaculation. Now that's healthy for the man in terms of the ejaculation.
Rubbing against the sheet.
Not the rubbing against the sheet, the ejaculation. I don't mind how you get there. But, some studies have shown as well that the prostate benefits from more ejaculations rather than less ejaculations. So again, that's the oil in the back notion being born over. You see, most folk myths have some truth in them or come from somewhere. And if we could understand them, then we would see where they are. But yeah, there are some deleterious effects. That does not mean that you have to have intercourse. It doesn't mean that you have to bring yourself to orgasm. And different people have different libidos. Someone with a very low libido. For instance, in women, again, if you already have a low libido and you're on the pill, you might find that your libido drops even further.
The pill can cause...
It can do that. So can the injection, right? So some women who already experience low libido experience even lower libido on the pill and don't have a need for that kind of sexual expression. But I believe we all express ourselves sexually.
You were saying to me off air that the major issue you deal with in your clinical sessions is what you describe as desire
discrepancy disorder.
DDD.
DDD. Desire discrepancy disorder.
Explain that.
It's a breakdown in the relationship and a breakdown in the sexual activity in the relationship when the two partners don't want sexual activity. Notice I said sexual activity. At the same rate. What often happens is
one has a higher sex drive.
One has a higher sex drive than the other.
The other one
may
so
want
much.
Greater frequency. Or they may want different sex acts. They may be more adventurous.
More variety and
exactly. And as they don't have their needs met, it exacerbates the relational activity between them.
That's the biggest issue that comes.
Both here and overseas. My instructor finds the same thing in Florida. Desire, and it doesn't present itself as desire discrepancy disorder. Usually the partners come in and perhaps the man has lost his desire for erections. He doesn't have an erection. So that's manifesting as erectile dysfunction. But what's behind the dysfunction?
So sometimes the erectile dysfunction
comes out of the constant refusal on the other partner's part. A woman can become aversive to sex because when she's interested in sex, her partner's not interested. So now resentment builds up. And the penis hates resentment.
Penis hates resentment.